Good Friday afternoon, everyone. I am Jen Bordeaux, the Director of Public Relations with New Direction Family Law. And today for Family Law Uncorked, I am joined by one of our fearless attorneys, Mr. Christopher Hicks. Say hi, Chris.
Hi.
And we just wanted to take a few moments on this Friday to provide an update on the North Carolina courts and the COVID-19 situation. Several weeks ago, after we were just transitioning into working remotely and virtually, Chris and I did a Family Law Uncorked about what had transpired with courts. And so we are back to do it again, as there has been another update. And we have a blog post about this on our website, as well as floating around on our social media. And I will also link the complete directive about how courts are going to be operating. So with that being said, Chris, you just got back from court.
I did, 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, so before we jump into the new changes that take effect June 1st, what's court like right now? I asked you right before we started, and I loved your answer, actually. So
it's weird. There's a lot more people than you would think. It's strange right now. Everything will change next week, I think. But this week it was a little different. They kind of had everybody on one floor, which was surprising. They're trying to force social distancing in the courtrooms at least, but there's only so much they can do. With that, there were a lot of people kind of breathing on each other in court today. I think the kinks will get worked out over time. I think next week we're going to start seeing some real changes to how the courthouse is run.
Yeah, and before, I'd imagine that as we get started with those changes, though, there's still going to be a bit of confusion. Were there signs up yet to help start directing people, or?
There were. So the courtrooms, they actually have like stickers on the back of the seats that say "sit here," and they're all 6 feet apart, and they have every other row roped off. So people are, you're really looking at 5 to 6 people in each row, separated by a row between. So there are there are some pretty well laid out signs and arrows and things for the file room and the cashier's room, things like that. They're keeping people separated, waiting in line to get access to files and make pay filing fees and things like that.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully people are better at following those arrows in than I am in Target, because I swear I cannot keep the aisles separate. I feel like such a rebel. I'm going down the wrong way. But okay, so let's get into these changes. So different areas of the court or courtrooms that that people have to be in, depending upon what their matter is, vary quite a bit, or can vary. I think one of the biggest ones that sticks out to me is that jury trials, just in general, aren't happening. Is that correct?
Right. The exception to that is if the jury has already been impaneled, which you're not going to see that really on the civil side very much, not as much as you would for, a capital murder trial where, a jury could have been impaneled back in March and still be going. But for the most part, there's no jury trials going on. Those are pretty much just off for June, at least.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll continue to get these updates as they change, or as more information comes out. But so specifically speaking for domestic court, which is where we're at, our hearing is going to be happening in person
next week. All of our calendar calls are going to be done remotely through WebEx. The judges will then let you know when you need to be there. Okay. What they're doing, and this is Wake County specific. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Beasley, issued her directives, and each counties or each district are kind of implementing them the best way they know how. So I know District 11, which is just south of us in Wake County, that's Johnston, Harnett, and Lee County. They have their own system that they're doing. Wake County calendar calls will be, 9 o'clock in the morning, done virtually. The judge will let you know what time to come if you're going to be heard at all. Parties can agree to do them remotely on WebEx, the hearings that is, and that's, there's some restrictions that go on with that. But one of the big changes from the latest directives is that judges can essentially force you to do a remote hearing. Prior to this, it was all by consent. So now they can say, well, you're having this and you're going to do it remotely. And Wake has tried to put in some time limits and some guidelines on number of exhibits, things like that, just to keep the population down at the courthouse. That's really what it all comes down to, just trying to limit the number of people. They're asking friends and family to stay outside of the courthouse, unless they're going to be a witness. And if they're a witness, they're probably going to ask them to stay outside of the courtroom. They're really just trying to save space for the parties who need to be there for their trial. They're even telling attorneys not to linger, which is going to be hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember reading that, and that, attorneys can't just hang out, in the common areas to talk to clients and things like that. And now when you mentioned calendar call, because that's obviously language that you and I are used to working within a firm, but can you just explain for people that aren't as familiar what exactly a calendar call is and how that's different than how it has been operating?
Right. So if you've been to court, you've seen it in person. If not, essentially what it is the judge has a calendar for the day. It's the list of cases that are on the docket for that day. And the judge will go through each one. And the attorneys or the parties, if they don't have an attorney, will let the judge just, let them know what's up with the case that day. Tell them, hey, we've worked this out. We need maybe 5 minutes of your time, or we're going to need all 2 hours that you can give us to have a hearing on this, or we've agreed to continue this. It's just a chance for the judge to get a report on what needs to happen that day, and let the judge kind of decide what is.
Sorry, appearance by Theo.
Yes, thank you. Just a chance to let the judge know what's going on, so they can kind of prioritize and get organized for the day. But they're going to be doing that all remotely on WebEx. Just the attorneys, and I guess parties too, if they're unrepresented, will likely be involved in that as well.
Okay. And so, I've heard kind of some good feedback on this, that people are actually looking forward to having virtual calendar call, because sometimes it's a game of just sitting around and waiting up at the courthouse,
right,
until your number gets called.
Right. And I've dealt with that many times. It's not a problem in Wake because our office is 5 minutes away from the courthouse.
Right.
But when I go to other counties like Johnston or Granville or Nash, I might get there at 9 o'clock for calendar call, and I'm there till 3 when I get heard, and it's not really worthwhile exercise to come back. Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, for sure.
It's going to be nice, and maybe it'll be a change permanently. The legal field is slow to change. We're kind of dominated by habit, and so I think a lot of lawyers will probably be resistant to coming and sitting, not coming and sitting at calendar call anymore. But honestly, if I can just jump on my computer at the office with the judge and her say, come back at 3 o'clock, that's 5 hours. I can get some other stuff done. So I think a lot of people are going to really like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so far in our realm, the only hearings that were really still being held were domestic violence protective order hearings and emergency custody situations. Right. So now more hearings are going to be happening, but they're doing more of a control as far as how many hearings in a day and how long those hearings are. Can you speak to that?
Right. So, we will be back, Wake County will be back pretty much full blown next week. The caveat to that is, I think, for remote hearings, they're only going to be temporary matters or, pre-trial or post-trial matters. No permanent hearings, no permanent custody, child support, equitable distribution, alimony. None of that's going to be happening remotely. The permanent hearings can still occur in the courtroom, but I think what's going to happen is, with the way we're trying to spread people out, it's going to cut down on the amount of time the judge has each day. Maybe not, cutting out more than one case a day from what we were doing previously. But I think we're trying to spread people out and spread the time out. And so I think it's going to limit to some extent the amount of cases that'll be heard in a day.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you foresee any, I mean, I think we've kind of talked this whole time about how, family court in Wake County was already congested before all of this happened. And so do you feel like this is just going to we're taking measures to be able to start operating at a higher level than we were the last couple of months. But do you think that this is, just kind of add to the congestion and is going to be kicked down the road, so to speak?
I don't think it's going to add. I think it's going to take away, but not as much as we'd like. Being able to knock out some hearings in this format is going to help. It's better than nothing.
Sure.
Which, for the most part, that's what's been happening for 2 months, just next to nothing. So anything's better than nothing. It's going to cut out a little bit, but we're going to have such a huge backlog already. I've got cases from May that have been continued to the end of September.
Yeah.
So we're going to be slugging through this for a long time, I think.
Yeah. So you spoke to different counties counties kind of have they do what they need to for their specific county, what works best, but he's really adamant today. Mm-hmm. Are masks required to get into the courthouse?
They are not required. Our own Carly Baker actually forgot hers today at the courthouse. They're not required. They are strongly suggested. And, there are going to be people who aren't wearing theirs. And we all hear the masks don't protect you, but they protect other people. So please try to wear them if you're coming to the courthouse. Judges, bailiffs, clerks, everybody's wearing them. Some judges are wearing gloves on the bench plus a mask. They are not required, but highly, highly suggested.
Okay. And kind of speaking again to the differences between counties, because I know we have constant communication between the team in the office or among the team in the office. And one of the other attorneys was mentioning how one judge was asking attorneys to remove the masks, during an actual hearing, whenever you're hearing arguments and stuff. So, people are going to have to kind of be patient as we all navigate this, because there might be some judges that are super adamant about making sure that mask stays on at all times. Others, like this particular one, that doesn't want the mask worn whenever you're, the attorney's actively speaking, or maybe someone's given testimony, because maybe there's some, barriers in understanding someone whenever they're talking. So, any other major updates that come into effect June 1st?
No, not really. Each judge is going to have their own WebEx room, site. So they're kind of going to control their own calendar. But for the most part, it's supposed to be business as usual, just with a couple updates. But no, for the most part, everybody's trying to figure out a way to get us back on track. Some counties are doing better than others, it seems. Some counties just don't have the resources to do it. But I think everybody's trying to get back to, a more normal type of practice.
Yeah, definitely. I had a question and I just blanked. Dang. Oh, I know, absolute divorces. So I know when things first came out and, dates were moved down the line as far as responses were concerned for civil procedure, that affected divorces some too. So our absolute divorces, which for those watching that don't know, once you reach that year and a day period and you actually file for divorce and that divorce is granted, so you're no longer legally married, are those moving forward now?
They are going to be all remote. And these are, what I'm talking about is divorces done by summary judgment. And if you don't know what that means, basically is divorces where there's no question you've been separated for more than 1 year, and there's no objection to it. For the most part, it's a 5-minute process, usually just one attorney handling it. Those will be happening remotely. anything that's contested is going to be just like any other case. It's going to have to go in front of an assigned judge or a rollover divorce judge for a hearing, with the guidelines of any other case.
Okay.
But we can finally get people divorced again.
Yeah. Hooray. Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you for joining me and talking about these things. And for those watching and those that already have hearings set and are going to be stepping foot into the courtroom, just like everything else going on right now, just try to have patience. These directives have come out with, their best estimate on what is the best way to operate in the courthouse right now. So there could be changes of things, that either aren't working so well or whatever the case may be. So we're still all in this together. We're just kind of figuring it out as we go. So if you do have any questions about how your hearing is affected by this, or you're tired of hearing what is or isn't happening in the court and you want to consider other, alternative dispute resolution options, please don't hesitate to give us a call. That's what we're here for, to answer those questions, see how we can help. And if the thought of just stepping foot into court right now terrifies you because of everything going on, court is intimidating on its own, let alone walking around seeing everybody, in masks and gloves and feel like you should be wearing a biohazard suit. So give us a call. Like I said, that's what we're here for, and we can get your questions answered and help you develop a plan that works best for you and your situation. So Chris, again, thank you for joining me. Have
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. And for those watching, we'll see you next time.
Take care.